Welcome back to Let's Talk Tax. I'm Dave McGuire. In today's episode, we're talking about how professionals can take ownership of their career. Joining us today is McGuire Sponsel's Chief People Officer, Kiley Ewing. Kiley, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So Kiley, we've been talking a lot internally about really a kind of a simple question, and it's who wants more? But in reality, that's not always a simple question because it's not just, hey, if you want more, poof, it happens. It's earned. I know we've been talking about that a lot lately. Can you give us some insight there?
Yeah, at our team retreat this spring, we talked about how outcomes are earned. They don't just get wished into existence. You have to put forth effort in an intentional way. And that all starts with having a clear vision of what you want to accomplish. We started out the talk by discussing what happens when you get into the car and go on a road trip and you don't have a destination in mind. It's the same thing like navigating your career with no destination in mind. You're kind of just taking the next right step, but we don't ultimately have a grasp on whether or not we're headed in the right direction or not. So that was the concept that we wanted to land with our team members.
Especially in the accounting industry, I think that can be difficult because as somebody who kind of grew up in the accounting industry, I know it was always you spend X number of years at associate, Y number of years at senior, then you get to manager, et cetera. And so I think it's easy for people to fall in that mindset of I'm waiting for the next step. I'm waiting for that promotion. I'm waiting for my life to come to me. How at McGuire Sponsel with what you're doing, are you trying to change that mindset?
Well, I think it all comes back to the why. You want the next step in your career, but you have to understand why. And we boil that down to we have to have a strong sense of purpose. And your purpose comes from three different sources. Neil Doshi was the author. I credit this to, not my brain. But Neil says that purpose comes from play, purpose, or potential. Your play being, I really genuinely enjoy the work that I get to do. Like most golfers, they enjoy the sport of golf, right? Easy example. Purpose being, I'm really driven by the mission of this organization. A lot of nonprofits start because the founder has a really strong tie to the mission or personal impact story that fuels the mission of the organization. And then potential being the third, where at your current place of work, you are able to achieve more of your potential. You're growing, you are expanding your skill sets, you are learning new things on a regular basis, and there's always somewhere more to go. And so it can't just be, I want that next promotion because that next title is the next logical step. It's, I want it because this is enriching my life because of one of those three sources of purpose.
Now, you mentioned golfers, and I know this happens to a lot of people, is you can start off with something that's fun, and you can lose the fun. Mm-hmm. You can start off with potential, and the potential turns into what you're doing. Do those drivers, do they change over time, or do they flip for people, and how do you adjust if that play becomes no longer play?
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely a sliding scale. And usually I would say most of us have some combination of the three. It's not just I'm drawing it from one bucket solely. I think it's a combination most of the time. And let's say season of life changes and maybe you're not in a growing season. So the potential volume's down, but you're just as passionate about the mission of the organization. And so that purpose might drive up because you are seeing that we're having a greater impact and you're truly inspired by the impact that you're having. Or you start to enjoy. Maybe you get a promotion and you take on a different role that is more aligned to your strengths. And you are now genuinely enjoying the role because it's a better fit. So absolutely, those can fluctuate and change over time depending on circumstances and context.
When you're going through it, you're talking a lot about personal responsibility, what the person has. As a leader within an organization, how do you foster that? How do you get the people to recognize it, but also put them in the right position where they can, kind of the old, I can't lead a horse to water, but how do I make sure that they have the opportunity to get to the water on their own?
That's a big question. So I would go back to, there are two things that have to be in place before we can get to a place where we can take responsibility, because that takes a lot of maturity and ownership. So first thing, we have to really understand how our thoughts control our behaviors, and what's behind the thoughts are feelings. So ultimately, we have to have a level of emotional regulation in place and know what we value in life. So core values have to be in line. So we have company core values, but each person has some set of core values that they intrinsically operate with. Whether they know it or not, those exist in a person. It's why you choose to leave a job. It's because one of your core values was violated. So we have to make sure first that the company core values are in line with the people and their personal core values. So if that alignment is there, that's going to increase the level of ownership that they take. Mm-hmm. If they have the emotional regulation in place, that's also going to increase the level of ownership. You can't really own something that you don't feel like you have control over. So that's why we have to get the emotions regulated. We've got to get the mindset shaped to where they feel empowered and can cross over that threshold of, you know what? Anything is within my control. If I want it bad enough, if my purpose is strong enough, and I'm thinking clearly most of the time.
You talk about kind of that goal setting and how you get there. And I just think to my own personal life and my own personal career. And there are times where I have a set kind of goal and it works out really well. Mm-hmm. There's other times where I've kind of drifted into it. And quite frankly, there've in fact times where I'm just lucky where I didn't necessarily set that goal. How do you help people create that clarity where they can see where they're going? They can see that destination.
Yeah, sometimes it's hard. It's easier for some than others. So depending on personality type, some people really like thinking strategically or outside the box or abstract thinking. Other people are more concrete and tactical and practical and live in what currently exists, not the what ifs. There's a part of our brain that is responsible for that type of creative thinking. And again, we can't tap into that part of the brain if we're in a fight or flight mode emotionally. So the part of our brain that's responsible for that fight or flight reaction is our limbic system. And it's there to keep us safe, but a lot of times it thinks we're in danger when we're not actually in danger, because there are very few dangerous things that we encounter on a daily basis.
No saber-toothed tigers in Indianapolis?
Not typically.
Okay.
I haven't run into one. But that response in our brain can happen very quickly. And so we've got to understand how to temper the limbic system so that we can start thinking clearly, and then start exercising the part of the brain that's going to help us tap into that creative thinking. The brain really likes a goal. So we don't like to do things arbitrarily. The brain operates very efficiently. Mm-hmm. And so it almost needs a goal. Mm-hmm. It needs a goal so that it can operate quickly and make decisions faster. So it's about reflection. And there's not really an easy fix to this other than just continuing to do some introspection and reflection and thinking about and letting your brain dream. We lose that ability as we get older and, worry starts to kick in. We start to get some adult responsibilities, and it makes it really hard to just imagine what could be. And so I would challenge everybody as you listen to this, try to just imagine what you would like your life to look like with no constraints.
You were mentioning the limbic system and kind of getting that under control so we can move more to the smart portions of our brain.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to define the different portions of the brain. I'll leave that to you. But how do we build those habits and what are the habits that kind of reinforce that create that opportunity to move forward versus the habits that maybe impede that?
Yeah. Well, I would say first, awareness precedes change. So we can't change anything that we're not aware is getting in our way. So I would first take inventory of your habits and just reflect, from a morning perspective. What do you do in the morning that you would categorize as a good habit and then maybe a habit that is getting in the way of your goals? I think most people probably first thing in the morning, they check their phone. Well, you're playing Russian roulette with your emotions when you check your phone, because if you get an email that's like, oh, hey, 911 situation going on here in your inbox, you're immediately going to be triggered into fight or flight mode. And that's going to set the tone for your entire day. So I think, one, people very frequently underestimate the power of a morning routine. And then as you go through the rest of your day, what are some of your other habits that you can say definitively are helping me get to my goal, like hitting the gym? That's always going to help you in life because it's going to keep you healthy and increase your longevity to pursue your goals. If I am watching TV all night up until midnight and then my sleep is compromised, those are habits that I would definitely decrease or eliminate in order to help you get to where you're going.
As we're going through and looking at those behaviors, how do we balance that? So I'm taking it back to a business owner. How do we get the people that are looking to advance their careers? How do we foster in them the ability to kind of look at how do I reduce the behaviors that are bad and increase the behaviors that are good, and create those habits that are going to long-term build up their career? So what do I do as a business owner to help foster that?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is lead by example, right? If you're not taking care of yourself and setting the example, like one thing I notice about you pretty frequently, you go on walks or runs throughout the day to get your workout in, or you'll hit the gym, or you have some kind of injury from your working out.
Well, that's just because I'm old.
No, but I know you take care of your health because I see it in the wild, right? Mm-hmm. I can see that. So that tells me, hey, if the leader of our company is taking time to take care of his health, that tells me that no matter how busy I think I am, I know the shareholders and the founders of our company are making time for this. I can certainly make time for it. You're setting the example, which I think is first and foremost most important. Then I think number two is we as a team are investing in training our people and bringing this education to them so that they can understand why this is important. And once people really understand the why behind it, they can get on board with changing the habits, right? That awareness precedes change. We have to help them become more aware. And one of our core values is awareness. Mm-hmm. So luckily, we eat, sleep, and breathe this in our day-to-day. We're going to hold each other accountable. So if one of our teammates says, hey, I'm going to report back to you on how much sugar I'm eating each week, which is the case for one of our teammates. And she's doing a great job because she's holding herself and asking me to hold her accountable. And so I am. And we have this team camaraderie that I think is so powerful when we all share our goals with each other and hold each other accountable to a high standard.
So as we're trying to foster this for the younger generation, and we're trying to get them to kind of take that ownership, what are some of the habits that they should start tomorrow? Not just, we talked about the bad habits, mm-hmm. but what are the things that you mentioned dreaming, that help them dream, help them see where they can be in 5 years? What are those habits that they should start implementing now, or even in small steps?
Yeah, I think what has helped me personally, journaling has been very instrumental in my ability to take a step back. It's a lot of times called disassociation, when you almost look at your life like you're watching the movie instead of being in the movie. So you go to third person and you almost examine your day as if you watched it on Netflix and think about, okay, objectively, what went well? What didn't go so well that I would do a little bit different tomorrow? And what do I need to prepare for tomorrow to make tomorrow an excellent day? I started journaling every single day and realized like this was a great way for me to process the day without, getting worked up in emotion and venting to a friend. Because the people you vent to are only going to reinforce your emotional state. And if they're a good friend, they're going to be like, can't believe that happened to you. You deserve better. Well, then you're just voicing concerns to an echo chamber, which doesn't really help get you to a place of neutrality and self-reflection. So I would say journaling is a great way to do that. The other thing I think is having clear goals and then on a daily, weekly basis, identifying your big three. So this came from a book by Michael Hyatt called Free to Focus. And he has come up with this methodology, which is super simple. I don't even need like his official journals to be able to deploy this. And I've deployed this with several of our team members and helped them with this. But each week you write down, what are your big three? What are your top three priorities that if you get these three things done, it's going to be a successful week? And then each day you have your daily big three. Mm-hmm. So if I execute these three tasks, and for me, it could be a combination of personal and professional tasks. Like sometimes one of my big three for the day is getting a workout in, because I know at 6:00 when I get home, I'm tired. So if I have that big three on there, sometimes just the ability to cross that off my list is enough motivation for me to actually execute it. Other than like if I put the time block on my calendar, a lot of times I'm like, well, I'm tired. I'm just going to go home, eat dinner, and go to bed early. Well, then I'm missing my workout and I didn't get to cross it off my list. Well, if I didn't put it on the list, then that little dopamine temptation is not even there as a tool for me.
You mentioned that little hit of dopamine.
Yeah.
How do we balance looking for the good dopamine versus the bad? Because you mentioned earlier the doom scrolling or the quickly picking up your phone and seeing what did I miss. Mm-hmm. Those give you dopamine as well.
They do.
How do we reinforce the good and pull back on the negative in those situations?
I think you have to be honest with yourself. I think I can look back to several examples in my own life where I wasn't being honest with myself about my habits and how they were getting in the way of my goals. For example, I love going out and socializing and a happy hour, right? But if I go to a happy hour on a Friday night and then I wake up feeling like crap on Saturday and I have this laundry list of things to do, is that happy hour really going to be a productive event in my life that's getting me closer to my goals? Maybe not in the way I was experiencing the happy hour previously, but I stopped drinking. And so now if I do a happy hour, I wake up Saturday, I'm on fire, ready to take on the world and feel great. So I no longer have that anxiety that, my lingering to-do list is not getting done. I can attack it. And then I get to Monday and I'm ready. So I noticed some of those habits in myself were getting in the way of my ability to get closer to my goals. So I think it starts with awareness and really being honest with yourself. We know which one of our habits is productive and which one's not. If you pick up your phone every morning and you get a flood of anxiety and worry and tension every time you check your email, it probably isn't the best habit for you to start your day with.
Mm-hmm. We talk a lot about creating those habits and we talk a lot about them internally, but also as we're developing them with staff. Do you see a difference? I know there's a lot of talk about generational things, but the things you've been talking about getting people to take responsibility and judge their own path, it sounds like that doesn't really matter if which generation you're a part of, is that if people know they can have control, they're going to go after it. Are you seeing that there's a difference between generations in once they learn to take responsibility, the desire to control their own outcome?
I actually think the stronger the vision, the more conviction they have in taking responsibility. I have a friend who is interviewing to be a pilot at Delta Airlines right now, and he knew when he was in high school that he wanted to be a pilot. He knew, actually, I think it was in middle school, but by the time he got to high school, he was reading books at the library constantly on planes and how they work and how to fly them. And then he went to flight school at 17. He's currently a pilot and is advancing quickly, and now he is so committed. He's got an interview in a month, and he has been prepping for the last 2 months for this interview. So that kind of commitment and drive, I think, comes from having the strongest conviction in your path. And he views this as an opportunity to create wealth and stability for his future family. He's not married, doesn't have any kids. He's 26 years old, right? So this level of ownership does not discriminate to age. I think I've seen young people with so much conviction in their career path, and then I've also seen, maybe older generations with no conviction in their career path who are still kind of trying to figure it out. So it doesn't discriminate to age.
One more question before we conclude that I was curious as you're going through it, and you mentioned the person that's becoming a pilot at Delta or applying.
He's becoming. We're just going to manifest.
We're manifesting. Okay. So, what happens and how does this affect people when something else comes up that maybe transitions it? How do you keep from spiraling and create the new goal? So let's say I always wanted to be an Olympic sprinter, and my body's not going to allow me to do that. Or let's say I go through an injury, or there's just outside forces that cause me to change. How do you recreate that goal and keep that vision alive if it's something you worked for a long time without spiraling in that time frame?
Sure. I think, pending there is not something catastrophic that happens that disqualifies you from your vision, right? So, like, if you were an athlete and you got into a really horrible car accident that then left you physically unable to do the thing you love to do, okay? So excluding that, I think it comes down to having awareness again, because you have to have a objectivity in, okay, where do I need to make adjustments and pivot, right? If something's not going my way, what adjustments do I need to make? That awareness precedes change concept applies here as well, right? I have to become aware of what's not working. Practice also helps, right? You don't just get something because you want it. You have to earn it, and that means it might take some work, right? That awareness of, am I still headed down the right track, and am I getting mentorship? Am I leveraging my resources to the maximum ability that I can so that I'm optimizing my chances? And then the last thing I would say is having that clear vision allows you to make decisions that align with the outcomes you're trying to create. So my friend, the Delta pilot, he said, I just don't understand why all my friends go out and drink every weekend. Like, I have so much to do. I have to stay focused. I love the fact that he is so focused on where he's trying to go. He has eliminated all distractions. He views those things as distractions to his goal. And I think that's the winning recipe right there, is to have a very clear vision, understand what it's going to take to get you there. And then when setbacks happen, you tell yourself it's either this or something better. Mm-hmm. So like I told my friend, he asked me to help him interview prep. So like I told him, if you don't get this job, which they would be silly to not hire you because you're a dream candidate, but if not this, then it's because something better is coming. And you have to just believe that that is the reality of the situation.
I think there's a lot of things that you pointed out that remind us of, as business owners, what we can do to kind of put people in the right direction and help them control their own career. As people are listening to this and they want to walk away, is there anything you want to leave them with as just ideas for how they can help their employees, their people that work with them, help them grow in their career and in manifesting what they need within the organizations that they have?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that you are investing in the development of your people. We as human beings are not going to outperform the level of self-development that we put into our own growth. Meaning success is a reflection of how much we are personally growing. We can't get more success than what we're capable of, right? So the only way you're going to increase that level of success is to increase the level of development that you put into your people, which is why my primary focus here is developing our people, because I know that that's what's going to elevate our entire organization from a performance standpoint.
Well, and as somebody that works here, I appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate trying to elevate the people, and hopefully people got something out of this, and there's an opportunity to help people grow over time within their own personal life, but also their careers within their organizations. Thank you, Kiley.
Thank you.